Welcome to the Find Creative Expression Podcast, conversations about art and creativity. I'm your host, Sarah Crawford, author, musician, and playwright. You can find the show notes and other information at findcreativeexpression.com. And let's get going. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of the Find Creative Expression Podcast. Coming up, I'm going to be interviewing musician and songwriter Kim Ware. Kim is super cool, and I always love chatting with her, so definitely stay tuned for that. So on Saturday, I had my second COVID vaccine, and it totally kicked my ass. I was super tired and sore and achy for like 3 days. It's Wednesday, and I just now kind of feel back to normal. But, at least I'm vaccinated now, and, the side effects were rough for me, but it's still better than COVID, so I will take it. And, it seems like a lot of people I know are getting vaccinated, so I feel like we're at least starting to approach the end of this pandemic. That doesn't mean you should be going to, raves or anything. Lots of people still haven't been vaccinated, so, keep wearing masks, keep social distancing. But at least for me, it's starting to feel a little bit more optimistic. All right, so I've got a super short intro this week. I have some stuff going on with my career, but I don't really want to talk about it right now, so you'll have to wait until the next episode for that. But for now, let's go ahead and get into the interview. Hey everyone, I am here with Kim Ware. Kim Ware is a songwriter, drummer, and founder of The Good Graces, an indie folk Americana collective. In 2015, Kim's song Cold in California caught the attention of the Indigo Girls, who invited the Good Graces to support some Midwest and Southeast shows during their summer tour. Kim is also the host of the Quarantuned Podcast, conversations about creativity and community. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Hi.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on episode 20 of the Find Creative Expression Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. It's always fun to talk to you, so I'm excited.
Cool, me too.
So how did you get into playing music?
Gosh, well, when I was a kid, very young kid, elementary school age, I always really liked music and singing little songs, and I'd write little songs in my head and performing for my parents and stuff like that. But I guess when I finally started kind of taking it a little more seriously, and started getting real training in it, was in middle school when it came time to pick an instrument to be in the school band.
Oh, right.
And I had taken, prior to that, I had taken guitar lessons, but it didn't, I enjoyed it, but guitar is really pretty hard for a little kid with little hands,
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't something that I felt all that drawn to at the time. It was fun for me because it was a musical outlet. But when it came time to pick an instrument for band, I without question, I knew I wanted to play the drums. Mainly because I think I was a big tomboy. So I associated drums with a boy instrument.
Yeah.
But that was I wasn't really interested in doing anything else. And so fortunately, at the time, if I remember correctly, you had to kind of get approved because a lot of people wanted to play drums, I think, more people than they could use. Right. So I remember we had to put 3 choices down, and I think I put trumpet for my second choice, but I didn't have a second choice, honestly. But Fortunately, I got my first choice, and that became my first love, honestly. And it just kind of grew from there. I mean, I played, drums in bands and stuff as I got older, and then eventually became a songwriter. But really, I think what did it as far as just really cemented my love for playing music was joining the band and becoming a drummer back then when I was 12.
Cool. So were you in like the marching band?
Yeah. We had a marching band and then a concert band too. Our band director, when he was growing up, his band director was so focused on marching band that like once he became a band director, he was like, I don't care that much about marching band. I want to do concert band. So like we had a marching band, but we had a amazing concert band. Like we played grade 6 music, which was like the highest you could play, and we would get a like superior rating every year. Like we were really good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
So when did you start writing songs? Like, was that was later?
Yeah, that was much later. I played in kind of like indie alternative bands, in my 20s and stuff. And it was a very like natural progression from going from playing drums to like singing, like backing vocals while playing drums, to then like in an old band I was in, there were a few songs where I would sing lead and play drums. But it wasn't until I moved to Atlanta and then picked up, just bought a old guitar from Lakewood Antiques Market, and I think that was 2006, that I really started really focusing on just like the craft of songwriting.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
So what's your songwriting process like? Like, do you typically start with music or lyrics, or does it kind of depend on the song?
It kind of depends on the song, but here lately, most of the time it starts with like a lyric. It's kind of like a lyric and a vocal melody, and then I sit down with the guitar, and come up with a guitar part that will work with that. It took me a long time to be able to do it that way, or at least to realize I could do it that way. Because like for the first probably, 5 years or so that I played guitar, because I was primarily self-taught, and just like I would play chords and not really know what chords I was playing, and so for the first few years, like I could not even grasp the concept of coming up with a vocal melody first, because I didn't even understand how that could even work. So because I was very limited with what I could play on guitar, so I would always start with a guitar part that I could even play, and then that would usually lead to a vocal melody, and then that would lead to lyrics. But here lately, like the past few years or so, it's been going in the opposite direction, which is nice. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, that I feel like that is kind of give you some more room for things, because I mean when I'm writing songs, like I'm not much of a guitarist like either, like even now, so so I kind of just start with like a chord progression and kind of make up a vocal melody like to that, but I don't think I could do it like opposite.
You probably could though, because what I learned about myself is like over the years I became aware of like, oh, okay, I usually play these chords, and like my voice usually works in this key, or like this capo position or whatever, and so you do it long enough, at least for me, that it's like, okay, it's probably gonna be these chords,
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever be able to do it either, but yeah, I eventually did.
Yeah. So you've played drums for, a lot of different projects, everything from hillbilly blues to indie pop. And, I found that there's something really liberating about playing instruments or singing for other people's music. Like it feels a lot different than, playing your own songs. So
Sure.
Have you had this experience, and what has been, some of your favorite projects to play for?
Yeah, it's definitely very, very different. Especially playing drums, as you can probably imagine. Because I think one of the things that really drew me to the drums was just the fact that, especially when I was a kid, I was really shy, and I liked the idea of performing and putting something creative out there, but I was pretty terrified to actually do it like on a stage. And so the drums was more comfortable for me because, you know, you don't see the drummer very well. And the drums it's very much a supporting part, which I was very drawn to. And so that still, even doing it, I don't play drums as much today, but it kind of scratches like a different sort of itch in my brain, like filling that role versus it is so different from being like front and center of the stage with the guitar strapped to you and like singing, at least for me, like singing these like really, really personal things that are, I go pretty deep into just like revealing my true self, you know, whereas I wouldn't say that I do that so much with when I'm playing drums. I mean, it's me. It's a very true part of me, but you know, it is very, very different. And I mean, I think as far as like kind of favorites, I guess there's a few that I would point to. The first band I ever played in was called Tex Svengali, and that was in the early 90s in Wilmington. And
I like that name.
Thanks. We were like, it was super raw, kind of like noisy, arty, not punk, but it was pretty heavy and rocking. You know, we were real inspired by like Nirvana and Sonic Youth and stuff like that. But the primary, like, we wrote a lot together, but I mean, we had a guitar player brought most of the ideas and he sang, and his lyrics and his song like structures and everything were just so interesting and cool. And even still, like, the music that I play today is so different from that kind of music, but I still find myself from time to time, especially if I'm making decisions about like arrangements or like production decisions, sometimes I'll reference back and I'll think like, what would he do? He's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but he was such a big influence on just me as a songwriter, as a performer, as just a person. That experience really was. I mean, it really changed my life in so many ways. So I definitely would point to that. And then right after I moved to Atlanta, I played with Chickens and Pigs and also Mary O. Harrison. And I think those were the first people that I played drums with that, because having a background, like I said, in kind of more like noisy art rock, where it's less about like storytelling, right? But their songs were stories. And I think it was the first time that I started to really get into that sort of songwriting. And they really inspired me to start writing songs. So I think, those three are probably some of the biggest influences.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. So you've released 5 full-length albums and 3 EPs, the most recent being Prose and Consciousness from 2019. So how has the process of recording and releasing music evolved for you, or has it?
Yeah, it really has a lot. And a lot of it is like a very conscious evolution, because each album, I want to do it differently from how I did like the previous one. And it's funny because like, so just for example, in like 2017, I released an album called Set Your Sights. And that was a very like sonic, like atmospheric album, on purpose. 'Cause I was really into that combination of like folk acoustic based songs, but pulling in a lot of the atmospheric stuff. And that was a lot of like overdubs and stuff. And so I really enjoyed that album. I enjoyed making that album. But then after doing it that way, I think it kind of made me want to do the next one and make it more of just like a live band sort of album. So Prose and Consciousness, a lot of it was tracked live over a handful of sessions, and then I went back and did like the vocals and did like minimal amount of overdubs, but at least like the rhythm section, that was done live. And that was the first time I had made an album that way. And it was so fun. and it went a lot faster too, doing it that way, which was nice. And so like the album, I'm working on an album now, and it's going to be different as well. A lot of it's due to just the necessity of, you know, the past year, the way we've been functioning and COVID and all that. So basically I started work on it. I guess it was last fall when I started it in earnest. Yeah. And, you know, there was all the work leading up to it, getting, you know, the songs ready and all that. But basically the way I'm doing that is I'm working with my friend Jerry Key, and he's like a producer engineer in Mebane, North Carolina. And I've done work with him in the past, and I've known him for, probably about 20 years. But I'm recording my acoustic guitar and my vocals just here at home, and then sending him those tracks, and he's adding everything else. And that's
cool.
It's the first time I've done an album that way. And it's neat. I mean, it's not quite as like fun and as enjoyable as like doing it with like a group of people and getting together in a studio, you know, and listening to the progress you've made that day, and all that's missing, which is, and I miss that. But what's neat about it is, I think, you know, a lot of the songs were written over the past year and a half or so. And it's kind of like the songs are a reflection of the time, and even like the process is a reflection of the time as well, you know, the recording process. So it's almost like it's like just a snapshot of this time. It makes it feel more accurate in a way, I guess, because of doing it that way. But
it's been interesting, like the projects that have come out of you know, just the way that we've had to function. And I'll definitely come back to that later, because I have some more questions about that. But I wanted to ask you about you founded and ran the indie record label Eskimo Kiss Records from 2000 to 2010, I believe. Yep. So what was the biggest thing you learned from running a record label?
Gosh, that's a really good question. And I mean, I learned so much about kind of like the project management side of releases that I obviously took with me, because I'm not doing the label anymore, but I'm still self-releasing my own music. And so that time period and all those learnings were really valuable. And I still use them today. But I mean, honestly, I loved doing that. I met so many people. I have so many like relationships that are still very, you know, thriving because of just the time I spent doing that. But it got to be a lot. You know, the bigger the catalog got, and just the more like different releases that I would have. It's not like I was pushing out near as much as like even a bigger indie label would do, but still having like, you know, about a 2 to 3 a year, kind of always having one, and feeling it's funny. Like for me, if it's my own project, sure, I'll give myself deadlines or whatever, but I can muck with those deadlines and it's not a big deal. But it was a lot of pressure for me, because I felt like, you know, it was like another job really. And I kind of felt like I was working for the artists that I represented, and which would have been great and awesome if it really did, you know, make me enough money to be my job. But I had so much other things going on in life that it became like a lot to juggle. And I think when I got to about year 7 or 8, was when CDs started kind of going out of fashion, and vinyl was starting to come back. And I love vinyl, but vinyl is such a project that I kind of felt like I couldn't sustain it for much longer, but I really, really wanted to do it for 10 years. So I mean, honestly, I think what it taught me, somebody who always had a problem saying no to things, was like, it kind of taught me when to just be proud of what something was, and realize that like, this is not something that I can just keep doing forever. And like you can walk away from it and still be proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that might have been the biggest thing it taught me, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's super impressive to like run a record label for 10 years, and like on top of working a day job. I mean, that's like really impressive.
It was a lot. Yeah.
I understand that. But I'm going to come back to that in a minute too. But
Sure.
but
Cool.
I also wanted to ask you, so you offer creativity coaching for other songwriters or, people just trying to fit creativity into their lives. So what has been
Yeah.
the most valuable part of being a coach for you? Like what have you learned or gained from that?
Yeah, so I would like to do more of that because I love it, and I have done a bit of that. And I think what I've enjoyed the most is when I help people with the songwriting part, because I've done some work with people where they just kind of need help prioritizing their creative life, which I have
Mhm.
a lot of experience in, juggling multiple things, and I feel like
Right.
I can be of assistance with that for sure. I've helped people get their like home recording situation set up so they could like collaborate with other people, that's super fun. But
Mhm.
what I like the most, I think, is when we just work on songs. Because I've been doing that recently with someone, and it's just so cool to have. And I wouldn't say like I wouldn't call it co-writing. I mean, some of what we're doing might be co-writing, but it's more like I'll give them sort of different like starting points
Mhm.
for it that might inspire a song for them, but
Right.
just based on kind of what I've used for myself in the past and what I've learned from going to different like workshops and stuff like that. It's really cool because I think a lot of people, if they haven't written a song before or haven't written very many, they're not even sure how to start, and there are so many places where you can start,
Right.
and just helping them find that in themselves, and going from point A, or sometimes it's not even a point yet, to
Mhm.
having something on the page and having, oh, and now I have a vocal melody, and now I have verses, and there's a chorus, and it's like watching that process and seeing the joy that another person gets out of them realizing they can do that is really cool.
Right, right. Yeah, I think with a lot of like people who want to be creative or who want to be artistic in some way, like they can just get really overwhelmed at like the
Yeah.
idea of like, oh, writing a song, it's like such a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. But I think if you just find somewhere to kind of like start, I don't want to say start small, but just get started, I guess. It's
Yeah,
it's like can really I make a difference, I think.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, really fun.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I've been like thinking about getting into like creativity coaching, but I'm not really sure, if that's where I'm gonna go, or I feel like I'm always in some kind of like transitional, like trying to figure out what the hell I'm actually doing in life.
Yep, I hear you. Me too. I mean, it's one of the it's one of the things that inspired me to like I'm going back to school now for counseling, um, so then I could be a legit like coach slash count, because I want to bring like kind of creative approaches into counseling, and that was one of the things that kind of inspired me to go in that direction, was just
Yeah, yeah.
the joy I get out of working one on one with people on
Yeah,
things like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that can be done with like using creativity to, help people dealing with depression or
Gosh, yeah,
anxiety or, just mental health.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so okay, shifting gears a little bit. And in
Yep.
January of this year, you started the Quarantuned Podcast. So you're having some really great conversations on the podcast about, creativity and community and staying connected during this time. So what has been the most, important thing about having these conversations with other creators?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think for me, what really inspired it is realizing that kind of loss of connectivity, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so having a way to still maintain that and still have these important conversations has been like huge to me. And then also just, I moved from Atlanta last year. And so everyone I think has felt quite isolated anyway, but I especially like leaving like all my friends in the place I had called home for 16 years. Um, I was, I think, longing for a way to continue to feel connected to my friends that are very creative.
Right.
And so I've always loved the outlet anyway, like the medium of podcasting. I've done a number of different podcasts in the past, so I knew it was something that I'd be into. But it got to where I just loved those conversations. They became like a highlight of my week because I would do once a week and do one each week. And I think I think I've lost my train of thought in what you asked me, but I think you asked me what I've found to be like kind of most important with them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean,
Just like what have the conversations like kind of brought like, to your life?
yeah, I mean, more than anything, I think that connectivity and the fact that, I mean, if you've listened to, a few of the episodes, we often get into some pretty deep, like important stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can get so busy with like the things that we have to do in life that we forget to just talk about the meaningful stuff.
Right.
And being very deliberate and intentional about doing that for about an hour once a week, it really did it brought it brought a lot of just like balance to my week too,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's been awesome. It's kind of wrapped up the first season and now I'm taking a little break from it in the summer, but I want to pick it back up in the fall.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I've had the idea to do this podcast for a long time, but I think it was like the pandemic and feeling so like isolated that kind of
Mm-hmm.
made me finally do it.
That's
And
great.
yeah, like same thing. It's been really cool. Like, well, first of all, to talk to people that like I don't always get to talk to, that
Sure.
often. Like
Yeah.
I know all these like really great creative, people that are doing really awesome things. And so it's really nice to like be able to connect with those people. And yeah, it's like, I mean, I only do it every other week, but
Mm-hmm.
it really kind of is what I need a lot of times.
Same.
It's very
Yeah.
easy to just get caught up in the hustle and bustle of
Right.
everything. And yeah, it's like good to kind of take some time to
Mm-hmm.
just talk creativity and art and
Yeah.
yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah, it's awesome.
So okay, like I had mentioned earlier, like we kind of talked about earlier, the pandemic, obviously it's been incredibly tragic. And if any of us could go back in time and stop it from happening, like we all would. But
For sure.
that being said, there have been a lot of creative projects that wouldn't have necessarily happened the way they did without the pandemic. And, I think your podcast is a great example of
For
that.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
have there been any other kind of projects or events that have come out of the pandemic for you, or has it like shaped your creativity in any way?
It really has. I mean, it has, it's weird to say this because it has been horrible in so many ways, but it has been such a blessing to me in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of ways. And almost we could have an entire podcast episode about that, I think. But I
Yeah.
mean, just to try to give you the summary version, like for one, it prompted me, like my husband and I had already been thinking about selling our home in Atlanta and moving to North Carolina to be closer to my mom and my aunt.
Mhm.
But I think it made it more apparent that that was something that I needed to do sooner. And so it didn't prompt me doing that, but it definitely pushed it along.
Mhm.
And so it was a motivating factor that kind of began like a snowball effect of a lot of big life changes that occurred for me over the past year. And making a lot of big life changes at the same time is really stressful. And I don't know that I would recommend it to other people.
Mhm.
But now that I'm on the other side of it, I can say, like I left my job with the corporate world. I'm now, experiencing a career change, hopefully to one day become a counselor. All of
Mhm.
that happened faster because of COVID also, because
Mhm.
basically once I was in North Carolina, I had been like looking into different programs, and then I thought, well, I'm just here at home all the time and they're online, so maybe I should just try to start one. Like that
Yeah.
would not have happened so quickly were it not for COVID. And then also just leaving my pretty demanding 9 to 5, and now I'm working freelance, and it's just a lot of different things to juggle, and it requires a very different level of like time management and all of that.
Mhm.
But it's given me a lot more control over my day to day, which I really enjoy. It's given me a lot more time to spend on my music, which I am loving that. And so, yeah, I think it's just, I'm finally able to focus on some things that I want to focus on instead of things that I just felt like I had to focus on for so long. And I mean, COVID did that for me, honestly.
Right. Right. I think both things can be true. Like, I think it can be, both a tragedy and a blessing. I
Oh,
think
for sure.
it's like we don't always have to put everything into, categories of like, this is all good or this is all bad. Like it's both things can be true,
Yeah, you're right.
So, and I know your latest album came out in October of 2019. So that was like, pretty shortly before the.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did you have like a lot of, like touring or promotion of the album that you were going to do that had to get like kind of shifted around?
Yeah, mainly touring. I mean, I had intended to do a lot more touring last year. Sorry if you can hear my cat in the background. She's being very
okay.
vocal at the moment.
I was thinking it was my cat. I was like, where's Julian?
But yeah, I mean, that was a bummer because we had our album release show in November at Eddie's, and that's one of the best shows I've ever played. And that, after it, I got to play it with a full band, and afterwards we were talking about the shows we wanted to do in 2020, and we wanted to do a lot more, and obviously didn't get to. So that was a big bummer. I did book a show today at the Earl, though. I'm super excited.
That is exciting.
Playing there with the full band in August. Yeah. But
that's exciting. I'll definitely be at that show.
That'll be great. I can't wait. I'm so excited. But yeah, I mean, all of that obviously got put on pause. The promotion part I had already done. But yeah, I mean, I definitely would have done more playing last year had that not happened, for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't played music in like 6 years, but the pandemic and just kind of this like live streaming thing that happened sort of, it caused me to like start playing music again. So, I mean, that's something that good that came out of it for me.
Oh, for sure. And like, yeah, I mean, I've been playing a lot, and God, I can't believe I didn't even mention one of the biggest things that happened for me from COVID was like the day that we got sent home from work, March 13th of 2020. Mm-hmm. That was when me and Andy Gish started something called Kimono My House. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a Facebook group. It's basically a virtual venue. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge blessing that came into my life that never, ever would have happened, like without question. Like some of the other things I mentioned, you know, like going back to school, all of that was in the plan. But like starting this Facebook group to keep Atlanta musicians connected, and then it turning into this like worldwide thing, like that was never in the plan, because how could it have been, you know? And so yeah, that definitely was another bright spot for sure.
That's cool. So, you know, throughout your career as a songwriter and a musician, you know, you've also managed to successfully hold down a day job. So how do you balance your music with your day job, or now, you know, now with school?
Yeah. So, I mean, that was always pretty challenging. And I mean, it's gotten a little easier now because, like I said, I have a little more control over my schedule, but I can tell you some of the things that I did when I was working a pretty demanding 9 to 5, because, you know, and this is where I've kind of helped people with, like, you know, coaching them for how they can arrange their life also. But some of the things I did that really worked for me was, I mean, one, I had to get up earlier, right? Like I couldn't just wake up just in time to shower, get dressed, get ready for work, and go to work. I mean, I could have, but for me, it was really helpful for me to be able to do, even if it was just 15 minutes of strumming a guitar almost every morning. I found that very valuable, because then that couldn't be taken away from me. You know, it's like I had already started my day with something that I loved. And sometimes, I mean, I would work out, I would finish songs sometimes in mornings before I would go to work. So that helped a lot. And I mean, I was very focused on, like, when I was at work, you know, and sometimes people will have like a kind of cushy job where they might be able to just book shows half the day. And my job wasn't like that. And so when I was working, I was very focused on working, because I didn't want to have to bring it home, because when I was at home, I wanted to be doing the things that I loved, you know. And obviously when I'm playing songs, I didn't want to be like all of a sudden have to shift gears from playing songs to work. So I really try. It takes a lot of it takes a lot of mental focus and being present like that, to where you can just sort of turn one off and the other on. I think that was really helpful, and just really trying to stay mentally and physically healthy also, you know, and really take care of myself, because it was an awful lot to juggle. But the getting up early would help. And then, like, once I sat down and figured out exactly how many free hours I really had in a week, you know, including weekends, then I kind of realized, like, I actually do have a good bit of time. Sometimes it just means like saying no to other stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of prioritizing and time management stuff, but it's doable. It was, I mean, really, it's a little easier for me now. But it was something, because it was important to me, I figured out how to make it work. It's not impossible to do both.
Right. That's cool. You know, I'm kind of like in a, like, I feel like I'm always on this cycle between like having a day job and then freelancing, and then going back to having a day job and then freelancing, you know?
Yeah.
And recently I've been kind of thinking about it, and because, you know, I'm kind of in that part of the cycle where I'm probably going to be starting a new day job soon. And, you know, I've been thinking about it in like I think I've had to kind of like redefine what success means to me. And like, does it mean that I'm not a successful writer or whatever because I work a day job, you know, like, and yeah, that, I mean, that's just something that I've definitely struggled with, like, you know, in my adult life. Like, is that something that you ever struggled with?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome topic, and just I don't know if I'd say I've struggled with it, but it has been very top of mind here lately, because I did walk away from a very successful career, but I am so much happier since I did. And so it's like, I'm not making near the money that I was making this time last year. And fortunately, I mean, my expenses are as such that's okay. But I think that's an awesome thing for people to look at and kind of figure out for themselves, like what success means to them. And it doesn't have to be based on how much money you're making or what other people think. And, you know, the freelance life, that's not for everybody. I did it once before in my 20s, and I don't think I was cut out for it then. And I might change my mind and decide I'm not cut out for it now either, like in a year or so. I don't know. But right now I'm really loving the flexibility that it gives me. And to me, it's like, even though on paper my day-to-day probably doesn't look like I'm as successful as I used to be, but I feel so much, it sounds cheesy, but I feel so much more like myself now.
Right.
And that is successful, you know?
Right. And, you know, I think there's this tendency, like in America, especially, to define success, you know, as how much money you're making. And like, I just think we all need to like kind of shift that. Because I mean, even, you know, a lot of people like look at me and say like, oh, Sarah, you're like such a successful author. But like, I've never really felt like I'm a successful author, because like, it's not the main thing that pays my bills, you know? And I mean, like, but who's to say I'm not a successful author? Because, you know, I have books, and like I've written stuff, and I've put my stuff out there, and, you know, other people like have read my books. I mean, not like a ton of people, but you know, I think it's just, I think there's a lot of gray area. Like we look at these artists like that are super famous, like, you know, Stephen King, or like, you know, I don't know, Miley Cyrus. I don't know, but like people that are really famous, and they're like that is the, you know, ideal success that like everybody's striving for. But there's like really this whole other world of like mid-list authors, or, you know, indie musicians, or, you know, painters, and like just people that are working as artists, but not like, you know, household names. And yeah, I think like it's important to kind of, you know, like define success in your own way, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I want to be a successful person. Like, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think for so many people, if it's not money, then it, like, it's the title, you know, and it's the American thing. I mean, you go to a party and you're meeting new people, or like when we used to go to parties, like one of the most common questions is, what do you do?
Right.
You know, and I think that I always had a problem with that. Like for a long time, I had a problem with like defining myself that way. And I want to do a lot of different things. And I mean, I think like, what do you do? I mean, I think, you know, part of my identity is I'm a cat mom.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, you know? Like, yeah, like you could be a bird watcher, you could be a hiker.
Exactly.
Like those things don't necessarily pay your bills, but like, they can be huge parts of your identity. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Or like some people, you know, really identify more with being parents, or, you know, being, I don't know, like just like a sister, or, you know, a brother, or a daughter. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more to a person than what is paying their bills, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think finding a place where you realize what that thing is that like feeds you. And if you're able to do that and kind of spend your days in a way that's like enjoyable to you, that's so successful. Like that's what it's all about, you know? So,
right. Exactly. So what are you working on right now?
Well, I'm working on a new album, and I think I'd say that's probably a bit over halfway done, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's coming along pretty good, and then I'm sort of releasing some singles along the way. I released one a few months ago, and I have another one that I'd like to release in June.
Mm-hmm.
Around is your birthday in June?
Mine's in May.
Why did I think? Yeah, I was for some reason all of a sudden I was like, I think that your summer birthday too. But yeah, because I think I played a show with you on your birthday.
Oh
Yeah.
Drunken Unicorn, maybe.
Yeah.
That was you. Yeah.
So that's why I was thinking our birthdays were maybe around the same time period. But anyway, I would like to release around my birthday another single, and then hopefully I can get maybe a new album out like next year. I'd like to wrap it up this year, release it next year, and I'm real fortunate to still have my my band of guys that I played the release show with. Like I'm gonna do some Atlanta shows. Like I mentioned, the one coming up in August. I'm gonna do that with them. So I'm gonna be traveling back and forth to Atlanta like over the coming months, just every so often to practice with them. So I'm working on that. I'm doing some freelance work currently for an agency. I'm doing the school thing, and then I've also been doing, which this has been really fun. I've been doing like musician bios for a publicity company, and they've been keeping me pretty busy with that. And I really, really enjoy it because, I just kind of like just dive into an artist's work and their background and their history and just kind of put that all together in like 600 to 800 words or so.
Right. Yeah. No, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. So that's what I've been, it's real busy currently because kind of wrapping up the semester and just starting the new contract position and then kind of trying to juggle that with school and everything. So yeah, I'm working on a lot right now.
Yeah. I know. You just named like 8 things. That's great. So what, books, TV shows, music, movies, etc. are you really into right now?
Yeah. So my husband and I started watching Schitt's Creek.
Oh my God, I love that show.
Man. So we were a little bit late coming to it, and I don't even know what prompted us to just pick up like episode 1 several months ago, but we love it and we're almost done with it. And we're trying to take our time because we don't want to finish it too quickly, So, but we only have like maybe a couple episodes left. So my husband and I have very different taste when it comes to like most art stuff, but particularly like TV shows and movies and stuff. So when we find something that we both like, we really dive into that because that becomes something we can enjoy together,
Right.
So we've been really into that. And then the other day, somehow I heard about the show Louder Milk. Oh, I know how I heard about it from Lissy, the singer-songwriter that I like her a lot. And she posted something on Instagram that she's going to be part of season 3. And I was like, I'd never heard of it. I was like, what's that? I looked it up. And it's on Amazon Prime, and it's a show about a substance abuse counselor. And I was like, oh, this might be kind of cool. And I've only watched 1 episode, but I loved it. And so I think my husband would like it. I showed him a little bit of it, and he seemed like he could at least tolerate it. So I'm hoping after Schitt's Creek we can move on to that. And it's just a couple seasons, so that's pretty easy to get through. Let's see, what else have I really been into recently? I read a really wonderful book several months ago, and then I gave it to my mom, and she really liked it too, called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a great book. I highly recommend it. It's one of the best books I've ever read. I mean, I have like a bias towards that type of book because it's about therapy. But I think I stayed away from it for a long time because I thought, just from the title, it sounded like they were maybe trying to sell you on the idea of therapy. And I was like, I'm already sold, so I don't need to read that. But it's not like that at all. It's really, really great. So yeah, I've been into that, and let's see, I really I listen to a lot of podcasts at night before I go to sleep.
Mhm.
But here lately, more than like following certain podcasts, when I get into certain songwriters, I get real obsessed with wanting to know every single thing about them.
Right, right.
And so there's been a few here lately that I've been enjoying, like some podcasts that they've been on. One of them, Jamie Harris, she's one of my favorite singer-songwriters. And she's kind of new. She's just released one album a couple of years ago called Red Rescue. She gives a really good interview, and I've been listening to some podcasts that she's been on recently. And Lydia Lovelace is another favorite, and she put out an album last year called Daughter. It's excellent.
Oh, cool.
So I'm really into like female-fronted kind of Americana-ish music. I'm usually listening to that kind of music.
Right. No, that's cool.
I think that's the main stuff that I've been enjoying here recently as far as art goes.
Right. So, okay. So I have a big question that I ask everyone.
Sure.
All right. Why do you think art is important?
I think art is important because it gets at the essence of like our soul. Even if you don't make it, even if you're, I don't want to say if you're just, but it's not just like that, like in a way that's like beneath somebody that makes it. But like, even if your experience with art is limited to just observing, I said just again, I don't want to.
I know what you mean.
You know, if you are an observer versus an art maker, still, I think wherever you find beauty, you know, wherever be it a picture, a song, a film, whatever it is that resonates with you, I think that says something very deep about you.
Right.
That is really important. And kind of like, you know, when we were talking about just the podcast and these conversations and stuff, I think that it's so easy to get like bogged down by the things that we have to do that sometimes we forget that. And I just think there's just something really beautiful and pure and honest about it. And I think that's why it's important.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. That's cool. Yeah, I think about that all the time. Like, I feel like not everyone is an artist, but I feel like everyone is, you know, can point to a movie or a song or a book or you know, just something that like means something to them or
totally, you
know, has really affected them in some way.
Absolutely. And I think that's super cool. And it's a connector too, you know, then it brings people together. Like, God, I remember one time, I hadn't thought about this until just now, but like one time I was at a show, I was preparing for a show at Crimson Moon in Dahlonega. And I was upstairs at the bar, and I sat down beside this older man, and he had a good bit of drinks in him that day. And he started just chatting with me, and he seemed really like pretty angry. And he started going on about, he kept saying, you young people, and how we've ruined music. And and he was talking about when like he used to go and like he would dance and in the 50s and all this stuff, you know, and you can't do that anymore. And a lot of what we call music is not even music. And he kept saying like, you young people. And at the time I was playing this song called Beautiful Brown Eyes that was an old folk standard written by Fiddlin' Arthur Smith. And something made me just ask him. I was like, have you ever heard that song Beautiful Brown Eyes? And he starts kind of singing it to me. And it turns out like he used to play it too. And I was like, I'm playing it. I'm playing that tonight in my show. And he couldn't believe me. And anyway, like my point is that the conversation we were having was almost like contentious, you know?
Right.
And then that song was the thing that we both had in common. And it was like, it was a bridge that when once I said that and we started talking about that, then we understood each other.
Right,
And,
right. That's really cool.
It was so cool because, I mean, just think about how often that could possibly happen with another person.
Right, right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's important. It's neat.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Well, like one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast was like, there's so much division, you know,
Right.
like on the internet today, and everybody's just like fighting all the time. And I feel like it, you know, it's nice when we can come together and talk about, you know, music and art and things that connect us.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So where can people find you and your work?
thegoodgraces.org is my like home base for my music stuff. I'm also on Patreon, and I love that, and I think that's a great means of like supporting artists' work. I'm at patreon.com/Kim Ware, Ware. Cool. And I'm easy to find on all the social stuff too, you know, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter and all that.
Cool. Yeah, I can link to all of your stuff on findcreativeexpression.com as well.
Great.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. That was so much fun.
Thank you. It's been awesome talking with you, and I hope I'll get to see you when I'm back in Atlanta at some point.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely be at the show in August at the Earl.
Very cool. Thank you, Sarah.
Awesome. I had so much fun talking to Kim, and I hope you enjoyed listening as well. Coming up on episode 21, I'll be talking to filmmaker Maxwell Bentley. Maxwell is always great to chat with, so you'll definitely want to tune in for that. Thanks so much for listening, and I will catch you next time. Thanks for listening to the Find Creative Expression podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. You can find me on Instagram at Sarah E. Crawford or youtube.com/Sarah Crawford. Also find me on Patreon at patreon.com/Sarah Crawford to support the podcast for just $1 a month. And that's Sarah, S-A-R-A, without an H. I hope you've been inspired today, and I'll see you in 2 weeks for the next podcast.